The meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. on a Wednesday in Ronaldo's agent's office in Madrid, where representatives from a major tech company had flown in from Tel Aviv to present what they called a groundbreaking partnership opportunity that would make Ronaldo the global ambassador for their new sports technology platform, a deal worth 80 million euros over 4 years that would have been one of the most lucrative endorsement contracts in sports history and represented a significant expansion of Ronaldo's business portfolio into the rapidly growing intersection of athletics and digital innovation. The executives, led by CEO David Goldstein and marketing director Sarah Cohen, had prepared an impressive presentation showcasing their company's cutting-edge performance analytics software, biometric monitoring systems, and artificial intelligence applications that could revolutionize how athletes trained, competed, and connected with fans around the world. Technology that had already been adopted by several major European football clubs and was generating substantial interest from Olympic committees and professional sports leagues across multiple continents. For the first hour of the meeting, everything proceeded exactly as planned, with Ronaldo expressing genuine enthusiasm for the technological innovations and asking detailed questions about implementation, user experience, and potential applications for youth development programs, while his business team took notes and discussed contract terms that seemed to satisfy both parties' requirements for financial compensation, creative control, and performance metrics. The turning point came when Ronaldo, who had developed a habit of researching potential business partners more thoroughly after previous experiences with companies whose values didn't align with his own, asked about the company's other major clients and partnerships, specifically whether they had any contracts with organizations that might present conflicts with his personal beliefs or public positions on social justice issues. David Goldstein initially hesitated, then explained that their company had recently signed a major contract with the Israeli Defense Forces to provide surveillance and analytics technology for what he described as security applications. And they were also working with several Israeli settlement organizations to develop smart city infrastructure in the occupied West Bank, projects that he characterized as routine business opportunities that had nothing to do with politics, but everything to do with technological innovation and market expansion. The silence that followed this revelation was uncomfortable for everyone in the room, as Ronaldo processed the implications of what he had just learned, while his business team exchanged worried glances, knowing that their client had become increasingly vocal about Palestinian human rights and would likely view any association with military technology used against civilian populations as fundamentally incompatible with his values and public commitments. "I need to understand this better," Ronaldo said carefully, "because from what I've learned about the situation in Palestine, surveillance technology and settlement infrastructure are not neutral business opportunities. They're tools being used to monitor, control, and displace civilian populations, and I cannot put my name and reputation behind technologies that are being used to deny people their basic human rights." Sarah Cohen attempted to reassure him by explaining that their technology was used for many purposes and that they couldn't control how clients chose to implement their systems. But Ronaldo interrupted politely but firmly. "With respect, that's not an answer that satisfies me. If you're actively seeking contracts with organizations that use your technology to violate international law and oppress civilian populations, then you're not a neutral technology company. You're complicit in those violations. And asking me to become your global ambassador means asking me to become complicit as well." The atmosphere in the room shifted dramatically as the tech executives realized that this was not a negotiation about contract terms or creative control, but a fundamental disagreement about corporate responsibility and moral boundaries that could not be resolved through financial incentives or marketing adjustments. While Ronaldo's team began to understand that their client was prepared to walk away from a massive payday rather than compromise his principles about human rights and social justice. David Goldstein made one final attempt to salvage the deal by arguing that business and politics should remain separate, that technology companies couldn't be held responsible for every application of their products, and that Ronaldo was taking an unnecessarily rigid position on complex geopolitical issues that had nothing to do with sports technology or his role as an athlete and entrepreneur. You're asking me to ignore the fact that your technology is being used to help steal Palestinian land and monitor Palestinian families in their own homes, Ronaldo responded, his voice remaining calm, but his conviction clearly unshakable. You want me to pretend that there's no moral dimension to business decisions, that profit justifies any partnership regardless of the human cost, and that my responsibility ends with cashing your checks. But I've learned that silence and complicity in the face of injustice makes you part of the problem, and I won't be part of a system that treats Palestinian suffering as acceptable collateral damage for technological advancement. The meeting ended abruptly, with the tech executives packing their materials and leaving without the signatures they had expected, while Ronaldo's business team immediately began calculating the financial impact of walking away from such a substantial contract and discussing alternative partnerships that might replace some of the lost revenue. Though everyone understood that few opportunities would match the scale and scope of what had just been rejected. That evening, Ronaldo released a statement explaining his decision without naming the specific company or going into details about the proposed partnership. I recently chose not to proceed with a business opportunity because the company involved provides technology that is used to violate Palestinian human rights and support illegal settlement activities. While this was a significant financial opportunity, I cannot, in good conscience, associate my name with organizations that profit from the oppression of civilian populations, regardless of how that oppression is justified or normalized. The response was immediate and polarized, with Palestinian advocacy groups and human rights organizations praising Ronaldo for taking a principled stand that cost him personally while demonstrating his commitment to his stated values, while supporters of Israeli policies criticized him for injecting politics into business decisions and argued that he was unfairly targeting Israeli companies while ignoring similar issues with other potential partners from countries with questionable human rights records. But the most significant impact came from other athletes and celebrities who reached out privately to ask for advice about how to research potential business partners and avoid similar moral conflicts, with several major figures subsequently declining partnerships with companies involved in settlement activities or military contracts that targeted civilian populations, creating a ripple effect that forced sports marketing agencies and talent representatives to develop new due diligence procedures for evaluating the ethical implications of endorsement deals. The financial cost of Ronaldo's decision was substantial, but within 6 months he had signed alternative partnerships with technology companies that focused on youth development, educational applications, and democratizing access to sports analytics for athletes from developing countries. Deals that were smaller individually but collectively generated comparable revenue, while supporting his broader mission of using technology to create opportunities rather than restrict them. 3 months after the rejected partnership, Ronaldo received a message from a Palestinian football academy in the West Bank, thanking him for his stance and explaining how his refusal to work with companies supporting settlement activities had inspired young Palestinian athletes who felt abandoned by the international sports community and gave them hope that their dreams and dignity mattered to people with global platforms and influence. The message included a video from teenage players who had painted Ronaldo's jersey number on the wall of their training facility, along with Arabic text that translated to, "Some things are more important than money." And when Ronaldo watched these young athletes practicing on a dirt field with makeshift goals while Israeli settlements loomed in the background, he knew that his decision had been correct regardless of the financial cost. The story became a case study in business schools and ethics courses about the intersection of commerce and human rights, with some professors arguing that Ronaldo had taken an unnecessarily rigid position that ignored the complexity of global business relationships, while others praised him for demonstrating that individuals with significant economic power have both the opportunity and obligation to make choices based on moral principles rather than purely financial considerations. Years later, when asked about the decision during an interview, Ronaldo said that it represented one of the most important moments in his evolution as both a businessman and a human being, because it forced him to articulate his values clearly and accept the consequences of living according to those values, even when it meant sacrificing immediate financial gain for long-term integrity and self-respect. The tech company eventually lost several other high-profile partnerships as more celebrities and athletes began scrutinizing the military and settlement applications of the technology they were being asked to endorse, leading to significant changes in their business strategy and a decision to divest from projects involving surveillance of civilian populations. Though company officials maintained that these changes were driven by market forces rather than moral considerations.